Hello, everyone. Welcome back. In this tutorial, we will discuss how to create a continuous delivery pipeline on AWS. This presentation serves as reference documentation. Using this documentation, you can replicate the same architecture for various applications deployed on AWS. We will provide you with a solution for implementing a continuous delivery pipeline (CDP) on AWS, which is quite straightforward. As previously mentioned, consider this as a reference that you can modify. In this architecture, we utilized GitHub, AWS CodeBuild, and AWS CodePipeline, ultimately deploying applications to AWS Elastic Beanstalk. However, you can substitute any of these resources with other tools or services you are more familiar with. The fundamental concepts of how the solution works will remain the same. This video is primarily aimed at solution engineers and solution architects who wish to learn about cloud technologies, DevOps, and continuous integration and continuous deployment (CI/CD) solutions. With this setup, we aim to accomplish the creation of a continuous delivery pipeline. This tutorial will walk you through the steps to create this pipeline, where you will learn how to set up a Git repository, create an Elastic Beanstalk application, and configure AWS CodeBuild and AWS CodePipeline. To get started, you will need an AWS account, a GitHub account, and Git installed on your computer. Here is an overview of the architecture. The following diagram illustrates the services used in this tutorial and their interconnections. This application utilizes GitHub, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, AWS CodeBuild, and AWS CodePipeline. Throughout the tutorial, we will delve into each of these services in detail and point you to resources that will help you become familiar with them. We have divided this implementation into 5 modules. Let's go through them one by one, starting with Module 1. In this module, we will set up a GitHub repository. We have previously discussed this in another video. Please refer to that video for a detailed explanation of how GitHub works and how to create a GitHub repository. The steps you need to follow here are similar. Once you have created your GitHub repository, push changes to it by following the on-screen instructions. If you are unfamiliar with this process, clone your repository using the HTTPS link and then follow the specified commands to push your changes. Once you have executed the git push command and your changes are pushed, you can test them. Open your browser and navigate to GitHub to verify that the files you created are displayed correctly. We have created a code repository containing a sample web application. We will use this repository to establish our continuous delivery pipeline. It is crucial to set up a properly organized code repository. Now that we have created a Git repository, let's move on to the next module. In this module, we will deploy a web application. We will configure and create an Elastic Beanstalk environment to deploy the sample web application we created earlier. These are the key concepts we will cover regarding AWS Elastic Beanstalk. I believe you are already familiar with them, so please review the on-screen content for further understanding. Let's proceed to the implementation stage and configure Elastic Beanstalk. These steps are straightforward, and we have created another video explaining how to create an Elastic Beanstalk environment, its use cases, and other related information. I won't provide a step-by-step explanation here, but you can refer to the on-screen instructions. Create an Elastic Beanstalk application, and while waiting for deployment, you should see a screen displaying the status message for your deployment. If everything has been created correctly, you should see an environment successfully launched. Now, let's test your application. Once you have created everything and deployed the application, you can check if it is functioning correctly. To test your sample web application, select the link under the name of your environment. After testing, you should open a new browser tab to view the web page that has been deployed. We have successfully created a sample application in the AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment. We will use this environment in our continuous delivery pipeline to deploy the Hello World application created in the previous module. Now, let's move to Module 3. In this module, we will focus on the build stage. Here, we will use AWS CodeBuild to build the source code from our deployment. During this stage, we will create a build project with AWS CodeBuild, set up GitHub as the source repository for the build project, and run a build on AWS CodeBuild. Make sure to understand the key concepts mentioned, including the build process, continuous integration, build environment, build specification, and build project. We have also created another video discussing AWS CodeBuild, its use cases, and its benefits. Please refer to that video if you are unfamiliar with CodeBuild. Now, let's proceed to the implementation stage. We will begin by configuring the AWS CodeBuild project. Follow the steps shown on the screen to configure the AWS build project. I won't go through the steps again, but I will share screenshots to guide you. Next, we will create a build specification file for the project. This is a crucial configuration. Without it, you cannot run the build. Make sure to understand what a build specification file is and its purpose, as mentioned in the previous video. Create a build specification file and insert the required build commands. Now, let's move to testing the CodeBuild project. After setting up all the necessary configurations, wait for the build to complete. You should see a green bar at the top of the page indicating that the build has started. Monitor the progress of your build in the logs, and once it completes successfully, a green checkmark with a success message will confirm that the process worked. We have successfully built the project, and the build process ran using the source code from our GitHub repository. We will utilize this build project in the next module. Now, let's move to Module 4. In this module, we will create a delivery pipeline using AWS CodePipeline. We have also created a separate video discussing AWS CodePipeline, its functionality, and its benefits. Please refer to that video for more understanding of continuous delivery, pipeline stages, actions, and more. Let's move directly to the implementation. To create a pipeline, follow the 5 steps outlined on the screen. First, configure the source stage, then move on to configure the build stage, followed by the deploy stage. Finally, let's monitor the first pipeline execution. Now we have established a continuous delivery pipeline with 3 stages: source, build, and deploy. The source code from the GitHub repository created in Module 1 serves as the foundation for the source stage. This source code is then built in the build stage, and finally, the built code is deployed to the AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment we created in Module 3. Let's move to Module 5. In this module, we will finalize the pipeline and test it. Our objective in this module is to add a review stage to the pipeline, which requires manual approval before deployment. The review stage is essential. When a developer commits changes, these changes should not be directly deployed to the environment without review. Therefore, implementing a review stage allows you to assess and approve changes before proceeding. We will discuss key concepts such as the approval action, pipeline execution, and failed executions. To create the review stage in the pipeline, follow the steps indicated on the screen. After setting this up, make a new commit to your repository and push the changes. You should then monitor the pipeline for manual approval of the changes. As soon as you push your changes, the pipeline should begin triggering. Follow the on-screen instructions to manually review and approve changes. We have successfully added a review stage with manual approval to our continuous delivery pipeline. Now, all changes will require review and approval before deployment to the AWS Elastic Beanstalk environment. That concludes our implementation of a CI/CD solution for a web application on AWS. We utilize AWS CodeCommit, AWS CodeBuild, AWS CodePipeline, and AWS Elastic Beanstalk for this deployment. Although we focused on Elastic Beanstalk for this demonstration, you can integrate any other services, such as ECS or AWS Lambda, for your CI/CD solution. Thank you for watching. See you in future videos on different topics. Don't forget to subscribe for more content.